Paul Wall.
Thank you, Ms Butler. It's a pleasure to see you in the chair. And can I start by thanking my honourable friend for North Ayrshire and Arran and others for setting out the context of this modern-day moral outrage that is the plight of the people of Gaza. Gaza may have disappeared from the headlines and from the TV screens, but the suffering for many continues. And neither I nor my constituents in Rochdale will allow the Palestinian people to be forgotten this winter or any winter. Yes, the ceasefire brokered by the United States and others was undeniably welcome. Finally, we're seeing the deceased and the living hostages returned, prisoners released, and the bombing is abated. But for more than 2 years, innocent Palestinians have endured the destruction of their homes, the tearing apart of their communities, and a relentless assault on their basic humanity and their dignity. And now, as the winter rains fall upon their battered land, the misery deepens. Camps have become swamps, as has been said. Families who once had roofs over their heads now huddle in mud and water, fetid water, some of it sewage water. More than 250,000 people are in desperate need of emergency tents and tarpaulins. The skies may be quieter, the airstrikes are fewer, but the silent killers of disease and deprivation stalk the land of Palestine. Can I ask the Minister directly, what is the United Kingdom government doing to ensure that this emergency shelter reaches Palestinians without delay? And also, how will the new Civil-Military Coordination Centre be used to compel Israel to open the floodgates of aid that Gaza so desperately needs? The UN Relief and Works Agency, as many have said at UNRWA, has been clear. Gaza remains in a catastrophic state despite the ceasefire. Israel continues to block international staff, continues to choke the entry of aid. 6,000 food trucks, as has been said, stand idle at the crossings. 6,000 trucks that could feed hungry mouths, clothe children, bring medicine to the sick. 90% of Gaza's population now survives entirely on aid. Families scrape by on one meal a day. Just 170 trucks are still allowed in, far below the minimum required for basic survival. But as has been said, as well as the scandal of a lack of food, children of Gaza also suffer gravely from a lack of education. UNRWA struggles to provide schooling for 300,000 students remotely and 50,000 in person under intolerable conditions. 44,000 Palestinian children sit in makeshift learning spaces, often on cold floors without chairs. Their sense of security, their very childhood, is being eroded every single day. When I visited the West Bank earlier this year, one of the most shocking sights was seeing the ruins of a Palestinian school building that had been attacked by Israeli settlers in Zanuta. The trashed primary school desks, the maps ripped off the walls, the wrecked life chances will remain with me and many other parliamentarians who attended for a very long time, all with zero accountability for the perpetrators. Education does lie in ruins. Satellite imagery shows 93% of Gaza's schools directly hit or damaged. That's 526 out of 564 buildings destroyed or requiring reconstruction. In North Gaza and Rafah, every single school building has been hit. What kind of army bombs schools? Sure.
Thank the member for giving way on this important point, which is making quite eloquently. Would he agree with me that the suffering of Palestinian people is not collateral, it is deliberate, and deliberate by Israeli government, and the UK must act because history is being recorded. We cannot sit and watch it being happen as it has been happening for the last 2 years now. We must act, and we must act immediately to stop the suffering of such terrible atrocities that we are being told.
I agree with my honourable friend. There must be accountability for Israel's actions and for its sins of omission as much as its sins of commission. What kind of army, as I say, bombs schools? So will the Minister say whether the UK is pushing for education to be a key part of the peace plan? Because as has been said already, that's singularly missing so far. Nearly 200,000 people signed the e-petition that brought us here today, one of the largest petitions of this Parliament, as has already been said. In Rochdale alone, 283 constituents added their names. This is not a fringe concern. It's a mainstream demand for justice. I will.
I'm grateful to the member for giving way. Can I add that 603 people from Blackburn also signed this petition, and every Friday my constituents are coming out in the cold or in the heat or in the rain, whatever the climate, they're coming out to remember the people of Gaza. May I remind this House, and may I remind the Minister and his government that this is the first live-streamed genocide of our time, and people will not forget this easily. They will continue to press us as their representatives and this government until this catastrophe comes to an end.
Thank him for those remarks. Yes, this is a grassroots, people-led campaign, as has been shown by the petition today. Now, there has been progress in November, expanded food rations, a catch-up immunisation campaign that vaccinated 13,000 children. High-performance tents have been distributed to learning spaces in Khan Yunis, at least. And bread prices are beginning to fall thanks to the World Food Programme. Households reporting 2 meals a day instead of 1. But that's not enough. Nowhere near enough. The challenges remain immense. Heavy rains have affected 13,000 households directly. Hundreds of tents have collapsed. Fuel shortages mean half the population still burns waste to cook. Infrastructure lies in ruins, and aid convoys are always blocked at Rafah, where they shouldn't be. They're denied at Kerem Shalom. They're turned away at hospitals in the north. UNRWA has food parcels for 1.1 million people, flour for 2.1 million, shelter supplies for 1.3 million, all pre-positioned outside Gaza. But Israel refuses to let them in. And so I say again, for too many Palestinians, this ceasefire is a fiction. Between the 12th of November and the 19th of November, the most recent data available, 8 Palestinians were killed, 41 injured, 18 bodies pulled from the rubble. Since 7th of October 2023, we all know the toll stands now at 69,513 dead, 170,745 injured. Even after the ceasefire, 280 people have been killed, 672 injured, 571 bodies retrieved. What kind of a ceasefire is this when the killing continues? Now, let's not forget that many ordinary Israelis want peace. Many Israeli human rights groups, civil society such as B'Tselem and others, are being targeted by Netanyahu's government. They know that without full rights for Palestinians and full statehood, there'll never be genuine security for them or other Israelis. Madam Chair, this is not just a humanitarian crisis. It's a moral crisis. It's the test of our values as a nation, and we must have urgent action to open all the crossings, lift the restrictions and flood Gaza with aid at long last. And we must keep up progress for a two-state solution, with peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians side by side. But speaking of a two-state solution, it was particularly sickening this month to see the Israeli minister, as has been said, Ben-Gvir, taunting in prison the one man whom many Palestinians see as the Mandela of the Middle East, Marwan Barghouti. And I had the privilege of meeting his son when I was in Jerusalem earlier this year. Does the minister agree that Marwan Barghouti has a key role to play in the lasting peace for the region? The government has rightly recognised the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains desperate. And as the Middle East Minister himself has confirmed, in the financial year 25-26, the UK will provide more than £100 million for the occupied Palestinian territories, prioritising humanitarian relief, economic development and strengthening the Palestinian Authority. These are important commitments, but commitments must be matched by delivery. The people of Gaza cry out for shelter, for food, for education, for dignity. The petitioners cry out for action, and history will cry out for accountability. This Labour government has made an historic step in recognising the state of Palestine, something no other government has done in Britain before. We need similarly bold moves on aid too. Let's ensure that Britain is remembered for solidarity and political courage. Let's press Israel to open all those crossings, demand the entry of aid, support UNRWA in its vital work, and above all, work for a genuine ceasefire, one that stops the killing, one that allows rebuilding, one that restores hope of a two-state solution. Because without hope, Madam Chair, and without real justice, there can be no lasting peace in the Middle East.